Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Movers Green Jobs Pioneer series. In this series, we're going to interview amazing individuals where we're going to listen to their stories because we believe that working on taking climate actions, addressing climate crisis, taking some green initiative, it doesn't always have to come from our pure passion. We also believe that it could be one of the things that we can explore our career path. It could be something that we can, bring it into our daily lives, in our work, in our career as well. So today, I have one of the most amazing individual with me, Nawal. Hello, Nawal.
Hi, Linka. Hi, everyone who's watching this.
Yay. So, Nawa is one of the most inspiring person that I've met for the first time through a Movers The World We Want workshop. Yes, I still remember that vividly, because I remember the things that she shared blew our mind, blew everyone's mind on the spot. And later on today, through the interview, you'll be able to get that level of mind-blowing knowledge and wisdom for sure. So let's kickstart this interview. Just maybe we can start by uh, letting Nawal introduce herself. Nawal, over to you.
All right. So, first and foremost, before introducing myself, I just want to say that Linka always flatters me. And because she always likes to uplift other people. And that is, I think, one of the most empowering characteristic that sort of defines her persona and that's also defined her journey. So I think, but it's all about, women not condescending other women, but uplifting them and adding to their power and sense of belonging. So I am really grateful to her. So I basically would like to identify myself as a political scientist, although I graduated around 3 years ago. And I so want to be pursuing my postgraduate soon as well. Owing to the COVID pandemic, it sort of was in the pipeline, but it still is a pipe dream. As we speak, I am a climate enthusiast. I am a visiting lecturer in various development courses from the University of London. And besides that, I am a YECAP fellow, which I really, really proudly identify myself with. YECAP is a youth empowerment climate action platform, which is basically a platform co-convened by the UNDP Asia Pacific, a Youngo Movers Program, and UNFCCC, UNICEF, quite a few other wonderful platforms that have together birthed this platform. And the purpose of this platform is to bring people from around the world, youth, particularly from all across Asia, on climate change, basically dealing with climate change engagement. Besides that, ending my introduction, I would also like to say that specifically, as per my own journey and as per my own evolution in the last 1.5 years, I love also subverting my internal status quo, which is not just the status quo globally vis-a-vis the global governance issues and climate change, but also vis-a-vis how I like to look at myself and what I have been able to unlearn and relearn in the past, or in the past year. So this pandemic has really been reflective. It has really helped me embark upon a very different spiritual and personal journey. So in terms of, so global governance was one of my passion areas and one of those things where I really wanted to expand my career, but I think I would also like to sort of intersect it with spirituality a little bit.
Whoa, that's amazing. Thank you so much, Nawal, and so grateful that you also have YECA Fellows as one of the key things that you introduce when you introduce yourself. So you mentioned that you are a visiting lecturer, you're YECA Fellows, and you're also spending a lot of time looking inside of yourself and also looking outside as what's going on, what's happening globally, right? Can you share a little bit with our audience about, how do you spend your time at every day, or how do you spend your time each week?
Well, frankly speaking, like if I get very, very conversational and ponder about it, I think I'm not really having very noteworthy days these days because initially it has just been to be very honest, I have really come to terms with the fact that I do not have to define myself with my achievements and my accomplishments, so to say, in a tangible way, in a world's perspective. Because back in the day, specifically before the pandemic, I think I really defined myself and my self-worth, so to say, by looking at the achievements, the academic achievements or career-wise, how well I was progressing, or what, even personally vis-a-vis my skill set, what I was learning, and if I got emotional or if I, reacted somewhere over the top or not. But now I've really started to come at peace with myself. And I think that's very, very important for us as individuals, that, we also let ourselves be. And so today, if I talk about my day, I think, or generally how my week goes, I think generally I just grab like a glass of milk or something in the morning, just right after my just right after waking up, and then I just go for my lectures that I have, because most of them are scheduled in the morning with my students. And sometimes I think as a lecturer, what I have really identified in myself, which I really relate in with my own teachers now, in hindsight, I realize that even if you are having a really bad day, even if last night you struggled while sleeping or anything, just because you have to interact with those students, and they will have all curiosity, all inquisitive questions. They will be interested. So you have to sometimes only wake up for them and to just be for them. So regardless of what your personal trajectory is like in life and how you're feeling, you basically wake up for those people. You sort of galvanize all your power and strength for them. So sometimes I'm having a very, very challenging day, but I think that day I end up giving a better lecture, or I end up being more mentally present in the class than days when I have good days. I think that's exactly where you sort of have to also, capitalize on the kind of skill set that you have maybe put somewhere, embedded somewhere in your subconscious self, which really keeps giving you a feeling that, okay, you're resilient and you can pick yourself up and you can do it. Because I think in a third world country and in a global southern country, being a woman is a struggle. Being able to reach a certain age is a struggle. There are a lot of stereotypes that are constantly being associated and affiliated with your identity. You are supposed to be living a certain life. You have to be doing certain things. You have to be constantly proving your self-worth. So what I have, even when I was talking about the spirituality aspect of it, it's trying to intersect it with global governance and whatnot. What I was trying to say is that I stopped proving a point. I've just started to do things for myself, things that give me happiness. The other day, I was talking to this mentor of mine, and I told her that, now I don't care if someone says that, if she had been to this university for her postgrad instantly after her graduation, or if she had done this and that, then she would have been, skyrocketing or anything. Because I think it's unfortunately, this is how societally we've started to define our self-worth. This is how, this is unfortunately a pandemic like outcome of a capitalistic world that we live in, where we are constantly trying to make ourselves all the more relevant. We are starving for relevance. We're starving to be never outdated and obsolete. Like, on Instagram, we are always search of the best or the most top-notch music, the best filters, what is the new trend, so I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I think we all sort of abide by that. But I think you have to be comfortable and you have to be happy with your own individuality and with your own very personal individual journey, because at the end of the day, you're a different being and you're a separate being. And in a third world country, it's all the more difficult, because here women are supposed to get married at a certain age. Like I remember very vividly that the other day my father said that, you need to instantly get married, because if you don't, then in late 20s you're going to be regretting it. And I said, look, I am not a packet of biscuits who's going to expire by a certain date. I will get married exactly when I feel like. And so, there are a lot of things that are constantly being attached to your identity, that this is what you need to do, this is, this is perfect, and this is how it should be, when this is not how it should be. Because I don't know when, till what time am I going to live, and how many years am I going to have a worthwhile time on this planet. So how about I take every day as it is, and how about I live my life how I like to, and what makes me happy, and what gives me inner peace. So that has been the kind of inner exploration and inner journey that I've been on for quite some time now.
Wow. Thank you so much. That's such a powerful powerful sharing. And I think there are a few things I really, really love about, and starting with, having this strong sense of self-acceptance, right? As you rightly mentioned, our self-worth doesn't come from purely heavily only on external recognitions. And those external recognitions sometimes can be toxic, right? Or doesn't suit us. The recognition as whether or not we're married, whether or not what we are doing, how we are living into other people's expectations, right? And then with all this kind of contrast of, how other people expect us to choose and what we actually want, sometimes it clashes and it creates a lot of like stress and anxiety and this self-doubt, right? So, and I think, and I truly believe and echo with you, if there's one big gift we can give ourselves in our life, it's really about self-acceptance. And I think that starts from the second point that you mentioned, is really understand what we want. It doesn't matter what other people want us to do in life. It matters to us what we want in our life, what gives us a sense of fulfillment, what gives us sense of achievement, right? And then and also I think the third point is really the bravery, the courage to actually set the boundaries and say that that's what you want for me, but that's not what I want for myself. And I'm confident that I am able to take care of myself. I'm able to take care of what I want to live my life with. And yeah, so I think these are really amazing 3 points that I for me, that's what I really enjoyed about this conversation. And I think that set a really great foundations of, as you rightly mentioned, as a woman, when it comes to career choices, there are a lot of visible and invisible pressure around us of, a certain stereotype. Oh, women should do that, women should choose this career, etc., etc. So I'm just wondering, when it comes to your choice of, the work that you are doing, right? And how do you overcome some of all these like barriers, and also and or also maybe take a step back, when you were younger, did you envision yourself to do things maybe that are a little bit different from other peers?
I think it would sound very cliched, but I think I have been the kind of person that, outside the bathroom window, my parents used to be in the porch, let's say, like driving their car and going and thinking that their child is with another sister or someone else at home. And all I'm doing is in front of the mirror, I'm just practicing like a speech. Like, I will share a very interesting incident that in grade 5, we just shifted our new house, which is a lot of years ago, actually. And because obviously I was very young, I couldn't write the speech for myself. And it was supposed to be a speech for a Defense Independence Day kind of a thing for Pakistan. And what I ended up doing was I had the audacity to go in the senior school section in the library, get hold of the then Prime Minister's speech, tweak it a little bit, and literally deliver it, and also win a second prize in the competition because the chief guest didn't even recognize that this was a prime ministerial speech. And I sort of tweaked it and I did it because I so wanted to be in that competition. So primarily, I think what my inner self has been that I have always wanted to express, and I have always wanted to be heard and seen. And I think that is not what in any way, holds me different. That is not my individualistic characteristic. That is something I feel is something that defines everyone. We all want to be seen and heard, don't we? We all want to express ourselves. We all want to be understood at the end of the day. And if we are not, then we start to project it on others in the form of unhealthy tendencies, in the form of trying to look down upon them and be condescending and be derogatory and whatnot. Now, where does racism and xenophobia and sexist remarks sort of originate from? Where does this exceptionalism with being a climate change for and against country sort of stems from? It all originates from and springs up from within this identity crisis that we have, because we are so insecure of literally seeing our own self in the mirror and sort of really owning our own identity, owning our own self. And I think it's okay if someone says that, she is so self-obsessed or he is so full of himself. It's good if you're full of yourself, because if you're full of yourself, that means you have embarked on an inner journey and you're interested in yourself before you're all enamored by what the outer world holds for you. So I don't know if this is more of a deviated and philosophical conversation that maybe a lot of our viewers would humbly not resonate with. But to put it short, I think every day it's a struggle to sort of, even yesterday I was teaching this topic on, demographics and urbanization to my students, and I was just recollecting, subjects like dowry and income costs that have been associated with women, how parents in South Asia and East Asia have literally felt that if they're going to be rearing children, and that to girl children, how cost effective would it be. So unfortunately, as women, I think I take it very personally. I think as individuals, as beings, I think we've actually been treated really, really bad historically. And this is a time where there's a lot of wokeism. There's everyone who knows everything because you can click it and you can browse it. But I love it when women really know their self-worth, and when they really stand for themselves, and when they really have, each woman has, she knows that she has someone's back and she's having someone else's back and whatnot. So I love it. And I think that is the only way. I think in my house, I think my sister and my mother, I think they always tell me that, this is not how you need to be defining your self-worth. This is not what you need to be doing. And literally all 26 years that I have seen my mother married, I have always asked her that, this is what you should have unlearned and this is what you shouldn't have done. And she says, yeah, I agree. Like, I love it when people of our own, our previous generation and our own generation are very accepting towards how their daily life routine, or how them being doted wives and doted daughters and perfect educationists and this and that, how you box yourself. That boxing needs to come to an end, and you need to really love yourself, and you really need to understand that you are a human and you're an individual. And I think that really helps me, because there was a time when I really felt that if this is not the kind of path defined by the society and being even expected by my parents in a tacit or an explicit way, that I'm not going to be following, God knows what consequences I'll be facing. Maybe I will be not just a rebel, but maybe I'll be an outcast. Maybe the family is going to say this, and the people are going to be, because initially even your parents, because they love you unconditionally, even they give into it. They surrender. But your distant and your extended family members, the overall society structure that you live in, it's quite toxic. It's quite uncooperative. It doesn't really lend you an ear. It wants you to be subservient to the status quo, whether that is your internal status quo or the external one. And in that context, I think it's not necessary that, again, you're trying to make a point. Again, you're just doing it because you feel that on an inner value level, it's right. It makes sense. It's comfortable. It helps you sleep comfortably. And I think we all have dreams, and women also have dreams. And I'm literally stealing this sentence from this, trailblazer lawyer that we have from Pakistan and human rights activist Gibran Nasir. He said in his interview with his fiance that, when women sleep and men sleep, the commonality is both of them end up seeing dreams at night, and both of them want them to be concretized and materialized. And unfortunately, in our part of the world, specifically in global South, without really sort of stereotypically drawing that distinction latitudinally, geographically, and beyond, I just want to say that this is how it is. Women are being told that you cannot dream, and if you will dream, that will be the cost, and this and that. And women should say, no, I will dream and I will do what I want to do. And I think the more we keep saying that we will prevail and persist no matter what the naysayers have to say, the more the subverting and the destruction of the status quo will keep happening, the more we'll keep making people uncomfortable, and the more we'll strengthen and emancipate ourselves.
Again, really mind-blowing. I think I just want to maybe pick up a few points I really, really, really enjoy. I think starting with knowing you, your younger self is already an advocate, like through your speech competitions, and then, really get your messages out. And I think that connects the dot of, that now you are, expressing yourself. You're so articulative, and everything that you said really are on spots and to the point. And I think another thing I really feel like it's actually something like, I never thought about in this way, is one of the word that you say, it's unlearn. It's about unbox, that how we a lot of people around us, and me and ourselves as well, when we grow up, we put ourselves into boxes, right? And then at some point, what you were doing is really to unlearn and unbox yourself, like take yourself, liberate yourself from all these boxes, and also as like a living examples of telling other people, especially women, and say that, hey, you don't have to put yourself in those boxes. All these boxes that people put, like, constrain us. It could not be, how to say, there are chances that we don't have to live within that. And as you rightly mentioned, it will make other people uncomfortable in the beginning, but that's exactly, but it has to be there. Otherwise, we'll continue to live in those boxes generations after generations. And I think another amazing point is about having this sense of security. And I That's also connected with like the expectations, is connected with the boxes, right? I think if we are just live in the boxes that other people created for us, we live in other people's expectations. In the surface, we feel like it's a secured feeling, right? Because we are living in the path that other people designed for us. So it seems like a safe and secure way. But at the end of the day, when we're asleep, and when we spend the day, are we really truly happy? Not necessary, right? Because that's not the path, not the box that we want to be. It's other people designed it for us. So yeah, amazing points there. I might miss some of the few key points, but I think that's but still, I think it's just amazing paragraph that you put together over there. So I just want to continue with this flow of our conversation, and then you've also talked a lot about things that you discuss with your students, and that you have to get up regardless of how do you feel, because this responsibility is there, right? So maybe just to understand a little bit more about your interactions with your students, how what do you how to say do you talk about climate environment, do you discuss about all these things with them, and then anything that that makes you feel in a way happy about some of the outputs of the discussions, or things that you feel a little bit concerned about the outputs of those like interactions?
Honestly, I teach a course known as Global Environmental Problems in Politics. So it's all about the global environmental politics. It's all about the regimes that have been ratified so far under the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change. And that was a course that I myself studied as an elective, and I loved it. And I think that was the turning point for me to have made my mind that I'll probably end up pursuing a degree or a career in environmental policy. Before that, I was a very typical politics and IR majors. I was not necessarily looking at environment, to be very honest, in that much of a reflective sight before. So now that I teach environmental problems in politics, or even courses like development management, where we teach students as to how they're supposed to holistically approach development as a phenomenon, through human action, through human intervention, through management, and how you sort of how do you link something like management with development, being this huge internationalized phenomenon that it is. I think while teaching such subjects, I think what I really like is the kind of cross-cultural and cross-country, very not a broad brush led, but a very deeper sort of engagement that I do with case studies and cross-country comparisons and empirical studies that we do. Different, like even today, I think we were studying about analytical narratives of development in terms of, failure case studies. And in that, we were studying about Venezuela, for example, how Venezuela had arisen and then economically and developmentally. And then, the most interesting thing is that there are course guides or textbooks that were, of course, authored by quite a few, academicians like a decade or so ago. And in that, they're very purely economically led when it comes to them choosing to enable us and employing our lens towards viewing development, which is just, looking at development in an economic way. But the way it has all expanded, and the way it has all evolved with the way, now today you look at development, not just in an economic way, but in an environmental way as well. Even, the sustainable development indices, which are meant to measure sustainable development goals, they are not economically, but ecologically led. These are the kind of supposed to be ecologically led. So these are the kind of things that when I discuss with students, they really feel that, okay, the world is not being run how it should be, and we are not really being very wary of our planet. And then we have these very grassroots level, very basic discussions that a street hawker outside our institution, for him climate change is not a priority and cannot be in a near future, because for him his economic security comes first. He does not know that what consequences would the carbon footprint will have. And for example, if the zoology department of the University of Cambridge said a year or two ago that more and more pathogens because of climate change will intensify, more and more chances of epidemics and pandemics outbreaking in future more often, something along the lines of what Bill Gates also said. So these are the kind of observations that how do you intersect indigenous populations with on this. So I think vis-a-vis that, my whole network with UNDP as a youth ambassador has also helped me, because there are so many youth from indigenous, very local, subnational parts of Pakistan that have really done wonderful, very insightful discussions with me, and they've really told me that these are our very basic education challenges. We are ill-equipped. We don't have access to teachers. We don't even have access to furniture or stationery or some very basic equipment for us to study, proper resources. And then when you see people ill-resourced and ill-equipped, you look at climate change in a very different way. But then I think climate change is very core to everyone's existence. And so are SDGs, which in a very all-encompassing manner talk about not just longing and ensuring a climate secure future, but basically achieving sustainable development goals in a lot of ways. So in that context, I think the kind of conversations that I have with my students, unfortunately speaking, I teach in a privileged institution. I teach courses that have academic direction from the London School of Economics in UK. So I have a lot of students who come from very, very privileged families. They cannot resonate with these indigenous people that I talk to when we have youth engagements from the UNDP in Pakistan. And so the perspective is very different. Somewhere you will find empathy, somewhere you'll find sympathy. And there's some students who, despite being from the same demographic as myself, both from the same income stature, they will be way more empathetic and way more wary. And the reason is that they are, again, as the World Economic Forum also says, in few of its latest studies, that you have to value 21st century skills, and emotional quotient is very important. So those students are not just focusing on longing for a degree and then a degree classification and then a very typical progression to ensuring their postgrad placement in a top university and a managerial or whatever, a typical 9 to 5 career. They really want to explore the world. They really think they owe responsibility. So I think, unfortunately, although the pandemic in that way was quite a blessing in disguise, because it really gave us the opportunity to sit down and think about our learning mechanisms, our learning systems, not revolutionizing, because I don't like the word revolutionizing, but nonetheless reforming the system a little bit, which was basically about really thinking the kind of skill sets we need to embed in our children. And I don't think when I was growing up, anybody told me what climate change was, or anybody told me what empathy was, anybody told me what leadership was. People just told me, you have to make sure you have the best grades, and you have to be, if you are a rote learner, good, if you're creative, good, but your first position or your top grades are, they come first. So that's the kind of mentality, and that's exactly the capitalistic mentality that you're ingraining into children from a very young age. They just want to compete and compete and be on top of everything, and you end up seeing nothing out of it, because these children, when they go in the job market, they have different kinds of insecurities. They end up seeing themselves misfit, and vis-a-vis the environment and vis-a-vis their responsibilities, global citizens, and even before that, even in terms of the kind of social contract that they share tacitly with their governments, they seldom have any realization. So vis-a-vis all of these things, it's very important that from very basic Montessori level or primary level classes, we start to embed in themselves, love for their planet, love for planting trees. I think I've seen a lot of parents and a lot of people doing that. I have seen a lot of plantation drives taking place in our schools. It has become very, fashionable, but it's good. I think the more fashionable it would be, the better. And I think this is all for now what we're exploring. But I think I really hope that there is a day when we are, because I think I would say that for myself, like very few people are very excited when they're in a classroom and they're there for actual like academic nourishment or something to do with really being able to walk out of this class, walk out of that class and learn something or bring about some change. 90% of the people are just sitting there and they just want to secure a future for themselves, like an economically secure future. And I think that is the kind of mindset that has to be changed. Because when you are going to intersect passion with profession, then you will see productivity on a very different level. You will see emotional quotient being served as well. You will see emancipation, which is a very subjective concept nonetheless, and the multidimensional nature of poverty that even the Oxford Department of International Development now has introduced. That you cannot just look at poverty in terms of income or in terms of health or in terms of education. It's so much more. You're living in a social media age. You're living in an age where you can be better off just by the number of likes you get. So in that kind of age where this kind of mentality is being so deeply embedded, it's so important to keep devising new mechanisms and to keep updating rather than keeping at what our parents have studied and what their parents have kept at. So there's a lot that needs to be changed, to be very honest.
Yeah, definitely. I think just want to maybe highlight the point that you mentioned, and I really like what you shared just now reminds me of a point that once you've once we've learned about something, we can never put ourselves into the perspective for those who don't know. And I think there's a term called the curse of knowledge, right? But I think what you were saying and what you are able to do is actually see climate change from different perspective, for some of those people who are actually have this acute awareness of climate change, it's there, we need to take actions now. But for those people who doesn't, for as you mentioned, that for them livelihood is more important, right? So how can people who are more acutely aware actually put themselves into the shoes for those people who focus more on livelihood, right? So in a way, it's also for us to design a policy that people don't have to choose, right? We don't have to choose either livelihood or climate change because it should be there for both automatically. And really also enjoy the sharing that you about like the skills, aspirations of young people, things that they need to, the way that they think about their future, the skills that need to acquire, etc., etc. So maybe along with that line, maybe just one last practical questions. I know the time is already, we've already come into the end of this interview, but I feel like, this conversation can go for another 10 hours. I'm just like really enjoy listening to you. As I mentioned to you, right? I feel like your brain, your mind is full of like treasure thoughts. And then, and the more I ask, the more, you share your treasure with us. So yeah, so maybe just one last practical question for listeners as their takeaway, in a sense that from your experience, what advice or tips that you will give to them when it comes to, if people wants to, take up the same jobs as you, either is like becoming like a lecturer, like become activist. So what kind of skills and experience do you think that are needed? And then what sort of advice you will give to them?
Well, I think like from my very earlier years, I've been very interested in sort of engaging with a lot of different academic discourses, the different academic lenses. So if people also want, and by the way, that was happening while Pakistan was a very highly polarized society. It was a very polarized country, and today, with time, I think we've started to unlearn that as well. I think politically, polarization and pluralism is being fed into people for vested interests. But then, as children, I think when we were growing up, I have really wanted to look at different perspectives. I would not lie and say I was not partisan and I was not very particular about my biases and prejudices. There was a time I was very, very political, passionately political, but not that I have made myself apolitical at the moment. But I just want to say that if you have this a realization that you need to listen to other perspectives. You need to be more inclusive as a being, as an individual. I think it's good to be in the academia, and it's good to be in activism. And any cause which is very close to your roots, or something that you personally feel about. I think if anything is very personal to your identity or to the way you look at the world. For some people, like I know a friend of mine, she's done some great work with Oxfam and so many other organizations like Save the Children, because she is very, very enthusiastic about children. And she whenever she narrates her stories, that on the field I did this, I did that. So, and honestly speaking, just before culminating our interview, I just want to say that I know it's also to be, unfortunately, in a very privileged position to choose a career for yourself, because a lot of people would be asked to do a BBA and they will have to. A lot of people would be asked to do medicine and they will have to. So you also have to see that economically, if it's helping you pay your bills, depending upon who is taking care of yourself economically. Although of course, in a social media age, a lot of people who just have this DIY approach, they say, please start paying your bills, especially when you live in a social media age where everyone has an Instagram page, everybody has a salon, everybody has an eatery, someone is doing some business or the other. So in that kind of an entrepreneurial world, an entrepreneurial century, of course, maybe I might be coming from too empathetic of a school of thought. But nonetheless, on a very practical level, I believe that if you know that you can be taken care of, or you are taken care of, or you will most likely in near future would be able to take care of yourself economically, then for sure, just go for it. Because a lot of time it's the economics of things that really hinder people. And because they have to maybe, feed their parents, or they have to take care of their children, no matter in what demographic they actually fall. And sometimes it's economically not very feasible, but passion wise it's exciting you, it drives you. So it depends, like so I think you have to find a good intersection. And to be very honest, even as we speak, I do not necessarily see academia as my defined career, or activism as a defined thing. I think I will keep changing it, just like this interview has been, very natural, very organic, with the flow, howsoever we were enjoying it. So I think, I know that's also a very privileged school of thinking, because not a lot of people can think like that. But I think that is what ideally it should be.
Right, because you are always learning and unlearning, right? So we don't know where's our passion will be next stage of our life, but it doesn't mean that we are not exploring, we're not taking actions, because that's the most important part, right? And I just want to say that it's truly an amazing conversation with you. We've talked about the issues of gender when it comes to choosing career. We talk about how we look inwardly. It's not just a very a conversation at a very surface or superficial level. We actually dig deeper into a philosophical level, because I think all this philosophical conversation is actually the most important foundation of how do we choose, what do we do with our lives, right? So those are very, very important reflections, and I really want to say that thank you so much for sharing that. Those are really, really important. And before we end our interview, I just want to say that for those of you who are listening, if you liked some part of this conversation, just drop them in the comments. What are some of the next topic that you want to hear from Nawal? You want to hear from the conversation between me and her? Please drop it down. I do have few ideas I want to still continue discussing with her. One of them being the capitalism. That's one of the things that I've been looking into, and I have a lot of, I would say, it triggers me a lot of thinking and emotions at the same time. I really want to continue this conversation with Nawal, and hopefully we can bring it to you in our next episode. So thank you so much for listening till now. I hope that this conversation give you some inspirations and ideas of things that you can start to reflect and start to take actions. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Linka. Thank you, everyone.